Ever since my daughter was in middle school, she gave me the nickname Podge. And ever since then, that's what my daughter calls me. That's what all of her friends call me. We were always super close, and I was really worried when she was going off to college that maybe we'd grow apart a little bit more. So I just sort of racked my brain. What could I do to try to stay as connected to her as possible? So I came up with the idea that every Sunday, I would record a 5-minute episode about the kind of topics we might normally talk about. Send it to her Monday morning, and then she could watch it on her way to campus. I thought it'd be a good idea to resurrect that. They'll be the kinds of topics that I would talk to my now 25-year-old daughter, or the younger version of myself, or people that I mentor, or maybe you. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Coffee with Podge. Today's topic, I'm going to talk about anxiety. Both my daughter and my wife, I hate to use the word suffer, but definitely experience a higher level of anxiety than most people I know. And so it's a topic that seems to be front and center for me on a somewhat common basis. So it's a topic I've given a fair amount of thought to. One of the things I think that's unfortunate about anxiety is how, people in society have framed it as a negative, something that needs to be gotten rid of, even medicated to eliminate. And I think this is a fundamental mistake. Anxiety is an evolutionary advantage. It's actually something that protects us from danger. So, your cortisol levels, your adrenaline, your norepinephrine, these are all things that spike when you have something that potentially cause you harm. I think there does become an issue when people become anxious over things that are inconsequential. So if you're anxious about where you're going to pick to go to lunch, well, maybe that's an issue. But if you're anxious about that big board meeting that you have coming up, that big presentation you have to give, that public speech you have to give, I would argue that is not only not a bad thing, but that's a necessary thing. It's your natural alert system. Your anxiety system is your natural alert system. It also tells you, hey, this is important to you. So for instance, if you had a big board meeting or a big public presentation you had to give, and you weren't feeling anxious, that basically means that that's not very important to you. So even from that standpoint, a lack of anxiety could be a useful indicator. So being able to understand that when you have anxiety about something, it's because something's important to you. The other thing is, and there's no doubt about this, it will absolutely boost your performance. Now, again, like anything that's to any extreme is bad. So if your anxiety is crushing and you can't get out of bed, well, then obviously, yeah, that's a problem. But again, for most people, most levels of anxiety, it's going to cause you to prepare. So if I'm feeling anxious about that, that big public presentation I have to give in 2 weeks, I'm not going to leave that work to the last minute. That's a good thing. If I'm nervous about that 20-page term paper I've got to, turn in 10 days, I'm not going to wait to the last minute because I'm anxious about it. It's causing me to, not sleep as well, whatever it might be. The other thing is, the normal anxiety response to the things that life throws at you, I would argue that that's a resilience builder. It's going to help you, it's like any muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. And so having that anxiety response that you acknowledge, that you manage, and that you leverage to your advantage, the more you do that, the better at it you're gonna be. And then I guess I would say the last thing to think about it, just from an overall standpoint, anxiety is going to drive growth. It's going to drive performance. It's going to drive growth. One of the things I think that's really unfortunate, I've read a lot of articles about people that deal with a lot of anxiety. Some of them will take SSRIs and other mind and mood altering drugs. And what happens is those drugs will numb people to their emotions. Anytime you mess with the body's normal biological feedback loop, you introduce problems where they didn't exist. So, you don't prepare for that meeting, you don't prepare for that interview, you don't prepare for that sales call, man, that's going to create a lot more problems. So my advice is see anxiety for what it is. And again, in most cases, it's a natural, evolutionary, biological response that sharpens you, that helps you be better, that helps you make sure that you're prepared. Years and years ago, I went to this wrestling camp, and the guy, it was the first time I'd ever done mindfulness training. We would have 4 practices a day, and after our last practice, we would do a 15 to 20 minute mindfulness session. And the guy who did this guided meditation, this guided mindfulness session with us, he had this thing that he said all the time. He said, pain is your ally. and it stuck with me. That was in 1983, so I don't know how many years that is. 40 something years ago. Pain is your ally, and his argument was the more comfortable you are with pain, which is not that you ignore the pain, you're fully aware of it. In his case, he was talking about more physiological pain from being tired from a wrestling match, whether it's your muscles hurt or you're hard time catching your breath, whatever was what he was talking about. But I would argue anxiety is the same thing. He would say pain is your ally because the more comfortable you are when the chips are down in the last, the third period of that wrestling match, that's a close match, you're going to come out on top more often than not, just because you're in your comfort zone. Even though it's not comfortable, you're in your comfort zone. I would argue the same thing is true about anxiety. If you're trying to be that successful person who's in the top 5% of performers, top 10% of performers, you've got to be in the top 5 to 10% of people in terms of how they manage stress and anxiety. So see it for what it is, an opportunity for growth, not a problem to be medicated or eliminated. Anyway, hope you enjoyed Coffee with Podge. See you next week.